"You are not even half the woman my mother is," Claire said, balancing her wineglass like a trophy as steam lifted from the chicken and mushroom sauce I had simmered all afternoon. The words landed with a clean little click, the way a door closes on a room you are still inside. "My name is Martha Jennings. I am 69, a retired school teacher in Fort Worth, and I had set the table with the crystal I only use when I want the night to feel like a promise. My son Daniel would be proud, I thought." Claire took in the dining room with a slow sweep of her eyes. She called the curtains dated, the scent too sweet, the plates too sentimental. Daniel kept glancing at his phone, laughing at nothing, a nervous little sound that never reached his eyes. I told myself to breathe. Ask about work. Ask about the apartment on Hemp Hill. Keep it light. But she wanted smoke. Not peace. "You are not even half the woman my mother is," she repeated, as if measuring me against a list I had never seen. "Her mother has a company and a beach house, European trips, and a closet that needs a calendar," she said. "You have cooking and sewing." Something very old and very steady in me rose to the surface. I pushed my chair back and felt the legs whisper against the tile. "Then maybe your mother should start paying your rent," I said, so calm I surprised myself. Across the table, the vanilla pudding trembled. Silence fell the way snow does in stories, soft and heavy and absolute. Daniel's smile crumpled. Claire tried to resurrect hers and failed. The kitchen clock ticked through 3 long seconds. The air smelled like butter and thyme and something burned. Maybe the part of me that had wanted their approval more than it wanted the truth. "Rent," Daniel said finally, his voice thinning. "What rent?" The night had begun with my best intentions. I had ironed the tablecloth and polished the forks until I could see a softer version of my face in each one. I wore the blue dress with the careful hem I stitched last spring when my hands hurt less than they do now. I told myself that love could be cooked, that if the rice came out perfect, we might remember who we were before life taught us, to guard our tenderness the way you guard money in a wallet. But tenderness without respect starves. I looked at my son, the boy who once fell asleep on my chest counting the ceiling cracks, and at the woman who had learned to speak to me in tiny knives. I had said the line already, and there was no taking it back. Maybe that was the point. Maybe the only way forward was through the sound of a chair leg whispering on tile, and the truth spilling onto a table set for peace. "Rent," Daniel said again. Louder now. "What rent?" The truth had been circling my throat for months like a bird refusing to land. Now it perched firmly on the table between us. Daniel's eyes darted. Claire's breath hitched. "I have been paying your rent," I said, my voice steady, though I felt the weight of every dollar I had sacrificed. $1,200 every month. 6 months in a row. Claire blinked at me. Once. Twice. As if the numbers were written in a language she had never studied. Daniel dropped his phone, and it clattered against the floor. It all began that rainy January evening when Daniel appeared at my door. He looked like the boy I remembered from middle school. Shoulders hunched, cheeks red from crying. "Mom," he whispered, "I lost my job at the shop. Claire doesn't know yet. We can't cover the rent. Just until I find something. Please. A few months. I'll pay you back." I did not hesitate. The money I had tucked away was not large. My late husband left me with memories, not wealth. I had my pension, a little savings from years of teaching, and the small inheritance from my father that I had promised myself would go toward fixing the roof. Instead, I wrote my landlord's name on a check, slid it into an envelope, and felt something in me tighten, like a string pulled too far. "Mom, let's keep this between us," Daniel had said, rubbing the back of his neck. "I don't want Claire to feel ashamed." How naive I was. I thought I was protecting her pride, but in truth, Daniel was protecting his image as a provider. And I believed him because mothers want to believe their sons. Each month, I watched the balance in my account shrink. I sold the gold brooch my mother gave me for my 40th birthday. I cut my blood pressure pills in half to stretch them. Dinner became rice and eggs. Soup made from bones simmered twice. And yet, when I visited their apartment, I saw new throw pillows on the couch, receipts for sushi takeout, and Claire's Instagram posts of boutique dresses. Tonight, at my table, Claire's painted lips trembled. "You're lying," she whispered. "Daniel told me the landlord gave us an extension." "No," I said softly. "I gave you an extension. On my back. On my savings. On my health." Daniel's head fell into his hands. His shoulders shook, but I could not tell if it was from shame or anger. "Mom, why didn't you just tell me you couldn't keep going?" "Because you were my son," I answered. "And when you came to me crying like a boy who had lost his way, I thought it was my job to carry you until you could walk again." I leaned forward, my eyes burning into both of them. "But I will not carry you another step. If Claire's mother is the standard you hold me to, then let her be the one to pay your rent next month." The color drained from Claire's face. The sound of the clock on the wall grew impossibly loud. The table felt like a courtroom, and I was finally giving my testimony. The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of fear, of lies unraveling, of truths that could no longer be hidden. Daniel's breathing grew shallow, and Claire gripped the stem of her wineglass, so hard I thought it might snap. Finally, Daniel broke. His voice cracked like a boy caught stealing. "Mom, I didn't just lose that one job. I've lost 3 in the last 2 years. And 2 weeks ago, I got fired again. I didn't tell you because I couldn't face it. I couldn't face you." The room tilted. 3 jobs? 2 years? I had imagined temporary struggle. A bad streak. But this was something darker. A pattern carved deep. Claire's face hardened, fury blazing in her eyes. "You what? Fired again? And you let me keep spending? The spa package, the shoes, the vacation plans. Do you know how foolish I look now?" Daniel buried his face in his hands. "I thought it'd find something before you noticed. I didn't want you to think I was a failure." Her laugh was bitter and sharp. "Failure? You let your mother sell her things for us while you pretended to be the man of the house? Do you realize I've been telling my friends you've been promoted, that we were moving up in the world?" The words stung, but I raised my voice, steady and fierce. "Do not speak as if you were deceived alone. You, Claire, never once asked how your bills were being paid. You saw the dinners out, the dresses, the spa visits, and you took them without question. That is its own kind of lie." Claire turned to me, face pale, lipstick trembling. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." "Didn't you?" I asked. "Or was it easier not to know?" Daniel's sobs came harsher now. "Mom." I was desperate. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself once I found a stable job. It'd repay you. It'd make you proud again. I stood and walked to the cabinet where I kept my husband's belongings. I pulled out the empty box, its velvet lining bare. "Do you see this?" I held it up. "Your father's watch. The last piece of him I had. I sold it last month so you wouldn't get evicted. So I could put food in your fridge while mine stayed empty. Daniel stared as if I had struck him. Claire gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. I sold my memories. I whispered, voice trembling but unbroken. I gave up medicine I needed. And still you sit here and let her insult me in my own home. Claire shook her head frantically, words spilling. I thought your savings were fine. Daniel told me, he said. Everything was covered. Yes. I cut in. He lied to you. Just as he lied to me. Just as you both lied to yourselves. Daniel lifted his tear-streaked face, broken and small. I never wanted it this way. No, I said, my tone like stone. You wanted the image of a man who provides, while your mother carries the truth on her shoulders. The crystal glasses gleamed coldly in the lamplight. The dinner table, once set for family, had become a battlefield. And so, I said, my voice final, if your mother-in-law is half the woman you claim, she can prove it by paying your rent from now on. The clock ticked again, each second hammering the coffin of the life I once believed we shared. Claire shot up from her chair so fast it toppled backward with a sharp crack against the tile. Her face was crimson, her eyes glittering with rage. This is ridiculous. You're a bitter old woman, jealous of what you'll never have. My mother would never stoop to this kind of pathetic display. I rose slowly, my palms flat on the table, every nerve in my body alive with fury. Pathetic? Jealous? Claire? I worked for 40 years as a teacher. I poured my life into children who weren't even mine, while raising my own son alone after his father died. I sold my jewelry, gave up vacations, worked summers tutoring just so Daniel could go to college. And you stand here in my home, eating food I cooked, under a roof I paid for, and call me pathetic? Claire sneered, her voice dripping with disdain. What do you call this sacrifice? My mother built a business empire. She owns houses. She travels. I cut her off, my voice sharper than I knew it could be. Your mother didn't raise my son. Your mother didn't stay up 3 nights when he had pneumonia, praying to God to keep him alive. Your mother didn't sew until her fingers bled so he could have a suit for prom. Don't you dare measure me by her yardstick. You don't know what sacrifice looks like. Daniel slammed his fist on the table, startling us both. His face was pale, streaked with tears. Stop it, both of you. Mom, Claire, please. No, Daniel, I snapped. You need to hear this. You have failed. Failed as a husband. Failed as a son. Failed as a man. You let your wife shred me with her words, while you hid behind lies. And you let me destroy myself, believing I was saving you. Daniel's lips quivered. His voice was thin, desperate. I know I failed. I've lost 3 jobs in 2 years. I told myself it was always the company downsizing, the boss being unfair. But it wasn't. It was me. I can't keep a job. I can't stand the pressure. And instead of facing that, I ran to you, over and over. The admission twisted something inside me. Pain, yes, but also clarity. He wasn't just careless. He was trapped in a cycle I had enabled. I drew a breath, steadying myself. Daniel, love without respect is not love. It's convenience. And I will no longer be your convenience. His head snapped up, fear flashing in his eyes. What does that mean? It means, I said firmly, your lease ends next month. You have 30 days to find a solution. After that, I will not pay another cent. I will not skip another pill. I will not sell another memory to keep you afloat. Claire's hands balled into fists. You can't do that. You'll ruin us. No, I said, my voice cold as stone. I am finally saving myself. Daniel's shoulders shook. Claire's eyes darted wildly, like a trapped animal. The room vibrated with the truth none of us could escape. The era of my silence had ended. Claire's fists tightened at her sides. So you're just going to let us crash and burn? You'd rather see your only son homeless than lift a finger? Her voice was shrill, but for once, Daniel did not echo it. He slumped into his chair, staring at the wood grain as if it held all the answers he had run from. She means it. Claire, he muttered, broken. She's done. Yes, I said, calmer now than I had been all evening. I am done sacrificing myself to keep a roof over people who cannot even show gratitude. Claire let out a mocking laugh. Fine. Go ahead. Abandon us. But when you're sitting here all alone in this dusty house, remember this moment. Remember that you pushed away the only family you had left. For a split second, her words pierced me. The vision of an empty house, of birthdays with no visitors, of Christmas without laughter. It was the knife she meant to twist. But then I remembered the phone call I had received only 2 nights earlier. You're wrong, I said softly, a small smile curving my lips. I won't be alone. Daniel looked up, startled. What do you mean? I took a slow breath. 2 weeks ago, I got a call from James Caldwell. The name hit the room like thunder. Daniel's brow furrowed. Claire froze. Who's James Caldwell? She demanded. My college sweetheart, I replied, warmth spreading through me as I spoke the words. We were inseparable back then. He wanted me to follow him west when he left Texas for Arizona, but I stayed. I chose safety. I chose stability. I chose your father. My voice wavered. James built a ranching business, then an engineering firm. He married, had 3 children, lost his wife 2 years ago, and now, after 4 decades, he found me. He tracked me down, and we've been talking every night since. Daniel blinked. Talking? About what? About everything. About the books we read, the dreams we once had, the lives we built. He asked me why I never traveled, why I never wrote the book I always talked about. He said he still remembers the white dress with red flowers I wore to our last dance. And then last week, he invited me to spend a month in Arizona, to see the desert, to meet his children, to live a little before life runs out. Claire scoffed, but her voice trembled. You're not actually considering it. Flying off to some stranger you haven't seen in 40 years? What if he's lying? What if he's after your money? I leaned across the table, my eyes locking onto hers. Then at least I will be lied to while standing under new skies. At least I will be deceived on an adventure. Not in my own kitchen by my own blood. Daniel's lips parted, but no words came. For the first time in years, I saw awe in his eyes, not for what I had given him, but for the strength he had never imagined I possessed. The clock chimed 9. The chicken had gone cold. The pudding sat untouched, but something in me had awakened. A fire, I thought, had long ago burned out. The days after that dinner unfolded like a storm finally breaking apart. Claire packed her things within a week. her stilettos clattering down my porch steps as she shouted into the night, "If you want to grovel before your mother, Daniel, then fine. But I won't live like this. I deserve better." Her parents, who had always been paraded as the pinnacle of success, refused to open their wallets. I heard from a neighbor that Claire moved into her cousin's guest room on the other side of town. Her silence was louder than any insult she had ever thrown at me. Daniel stayed behind, stripped of the facade he had worn for so long. When he came to see me the following Tuesday, I barely recognized him. His shirt was wrinkled, his eyes hollow with sleepless nights, and his hands trembled when he held his coffee cup. "Mom," he said, his voice raw, "Claire's gone, and I don't blame her. She married an image I couldn't hold up. Without you paying the rent, without me pretending to succeed, everything collapsed." I folded my hands, keeping my heart steady. "So what will you do now?" He looked at me, and for the first time in years, I saw no excuses in his eyes. "I got a job. A cleaning company. Night shifts. Low pay, but it's honest. I am renting a single room downtown. It's not much, but it's mine." I blinked. "You really did that?" He nodded. "I had to. I slept in my car for 3 nights before I could afford the deposit. It was humiliating, but it taught me something. For the first time, I understood what consequences feel like when no one is rescuing you." My throat tightened. I wanted to hug him, to say I was proud, but I forced myself to stay firm. "It's a start, Daniel. Change doesn't come from words. It comes from consistency." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a plain white envelope. He placed it on the table between us like a peace offering. "Don't open it now. Open it when you're on the plane to Arizona. I couldn't say what I needed to your face. Not yet." I traced the edge of the envelope with my fingertips. It felt heavy, with words unspoken. Daniel leaned back, his eyes glistening. "I am also going to therapy at the community center. Free sessions. But they're helping. They told me I've been living in a cycle of dependency. That I kept failing because I always knew you'd catch me. If I want to break it, I need to stand on my own feet." The honesty in his tone pierced me deeper than any insult Claire had ever thrown. I nodded slowly. "Then let this be the start. But don't expect me to save you anymore. That chapter is closed." Daniel swallowed hard, but he didn't argue. For the first time in a long time, I saw not the boy begging for rescue, but the man beginning, shakily, to rise. The morning of my departure was bright, the kind of Texas morning where the air carries both promise and farewell. Daniel drove me to the airport in his battered sedan. He was quiet, focused on the road, but the small bouquet of Daisy's head placed on the passenger seat spoke louder than words. When we reached the gate, he hugged me longer than he had in years. "Don't open the letter until you're in the sky," he whispered. His voice cracked, but he didn't cry. On the plane, I slid the envelope from my purse. My hands trembled as I unfolded the pages. "Mom," it began, in Daniel's careful handwriting, "I've spent my whole life expecting you to rescue me. I see now that your love became my crutch, and I leaned so hard you almost broke. This isn't an apology. It's a confession. I was afraid to be a man, because being a child meant you'd always catch me. But I know now you deserve more. You deserve freedom, joy, love. Fly high. Mom, don't look back. Let me learn to walk without you holding me up. Yours always, Daniel." Tears blurred the words, But they didn't taste bitter. They tasted like release. Hours later, I stepped into the terminal in Phoenix. And there he was, James Caldwell, standing with a bouquet of yellow roses. His hair white as snow, but his smile unchanged from 40 years ago. "Martha," he said, his voice warm as the desert sun. "You haven't changed a bit." I laughed through my tears. "Liar. We've both changed. But maybe not where it matters." He took my hand. And suddenly I wasn't 70 anymore. I was 20 again, standing in the college library, blushing as he asked if I wanted to dance. Over the next days, James showed me the Arizona he had built his life upon. The wide open desert stretched like an ocean of sand and sky. His ranch spread across acres of golden land, dotted with horses and wildflowers. At night, we sat on his deck and watched the sunset paint the horizon in purples and fire. He introduced me to his children, who welcomed me with a kindness that caught me off guard. His youngest daughter, Carmen, hugged me and whispered, "Dad hasn't smiled like this since Mom died." "Thank you." James cooked dinner for me each evening, his hands surprisingly nimble with pots and pans. One night, as we ate under a canopy of stars, he leaned closer. "I don't want this to be just a visit, Martha. I want you to think about staying. Maybe not forever, but long enough to see if we can build something real, even now." The desert night was quiet, but inside me, storms of doubt and longing collided. I thought of Daniel, of the years I had sacrificed, of the house in Fort Worth, filled with ghosts. And I thought of the life I might still have, here, under these vast skies. 6 months later, I stood on the porch of my old house in Fort Worth for the last time. The walls had absorbed decades of my tears and laughter, but now they only echoed with silence. Daniel helped me pack boxes into a moving truck, his shirt damp with sweat, his eyes clearer than I had ever seen them. "You're really leaving," he said softly, looking at the for sale sign staked in the yard. I nodded. Yes. James and I decided it was time. Arizona feels like a beginning, not an ending. He smiled faintly. "Then I am proud of you, more than I can ever say." It was true. Daniel had changed. He kept his night job, then worked his way into a supervisor role. He started online courses in bookkeeping and was saving for his own small apartment. The boy who once begged me to rescue him now stood on his own feet. Watching him learn responsibility filled me with hope. I thought I had lost forever. Claire, I heard through whispers, had remarried an older man, wealthy enough to maintain the lifestyle she demanded. The irony was not lost on me. She had her empire now, but not love. I let that chapter close without bitterness. In Arizona, James and I built a rhythm. Mornings with coffee on the deck, afternoons exploring trails, evenings filled with conversation that never seemed to run out. His children accepted me not as a replacement for their mother, but as a woman who had brought their father back to life. And James treated me not as a tired widow or a mother to be leaned on, but as a partner, an equal, a woman worth cherishing. One evening, under a sky streaked with gold, he slipped a small silver band onto my finger. "Not to bind you," he said, his voice steady, "but to tell you that even now, even at this stage of life, love can still begin." Daniel flew in for the wedding, a simple ceremony on the ranch with wildflowers in mason jars. He cried through most of it, but they were tears of joy. After the vows, he hugged me so tightly, I felt his ribs press into mine. "I never thought I'd see my mother marry for love," he whispered. "Not for duty, not for convenience, but for love." as I write these words from Jameis Deck. The desert wind carries the scent of sage, and the horizon feels endless. I have learned that sacrifice without respect becomes chains, that love without boundaries breeds weakness, and that sometimes the harshest words, "You are not half the woman my mother is," can be the spark that ignites freedom. My lesson is simple, but it took me 70 years to learn. It is never too late. Never too late to claim your worth, to set boundaries, to rediscover joy, and to begin again. So I ask you, if life handed you a second chance at happiness, would you be brave enough to take it?